Hey, guess what I watched over the weekend?
What did you watch?
Your favorite car movie in the world?
Driven?
No, that's mine.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, you watched the what is it called?
Twister.
Oh,
No, were you going to say Condor Man?
Yes.
I haven't watched that yet.
Okay, but Twister.
I watched Twister again.
This is the time of year to watch it.
Yeah.
It's tornado season.
Tornado season. There's the sequel coming out. Or
Yeah.
the reboot. I don't know what it is.
I mean, if Helen Hunt's not in it, it's a miss for me, but continue. I want to hear about your experience.
Oh, but I haven't seen it since I was little. And it holds up really good.
It's so good.
Like the effects are great. And the storyline is great. It moves really quick.
It moves great.
Yeah,
and
I was impressed.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is so
he's good in it.
He's so good.
He's actually really good in it.
Yeah. And Bill Paxton
He plays a character named Bill.
which is so great. It's like, we know that you can't really remember your character's name, so we decided to make this really easy on you.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to go with Bill.
Yeah.
Great.
It's good, man. And I don't know what the movie is coming out in the summer. It's called Twisters.
Yeah.
It's the same font.
Yes.
It looks like it has the same technology where they're like, we have a device that'll open up and fling sensors into the air. And I was like, I don't know how this is.
Didn't we do this once?
It has sequel nameage because of the Twisters.
And it's Amblin Entertainment, I think, isn't it? It's still
maybe.
Spielberg that's making this?
But if it's the same plot, how is it a sequel? Like, if they're still coming out with the same technology in the sequel?
Yeah, exactly. You're like,
I don't know.
I guess it could just be Ghostbusters 2 that way.
Yeah. So
someone unleashed more tornadoes.
Yeah.
Before Dick was here turned it off.
It's true. This man has no dick.
The best line ever.
So I watched Twister.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is the best car movie in recent history.
That is the dumbest take.
It's a car movie.
In recent history.
85% car movie.
Ford v Ferrari. All the Fast and Furious series. Tokyo Drift.
Wow. Twister's better. Ends up upside down in a ditch.
Do you
You're
know
like,
other movie I hate when they destroy a Jeep? It's in the new. We're not even listening to the music. It's in the new Goosebumps with Jack Black.
Oh,
he has the Jeep Wagoneer.
Yeah,
and it's pristine. And the monster
he makes a comment of it,
and he's like, "Oh, it had such low miles." I felt it when I watched it. I was like, "Oh no!"
You're like,
"Oh, it was like wood paneled Jeep." It's like, no,
not that.
It had such low miles. I was like, "Yeah, sorry, Jack." Hopefully that was CGI.
I love that they made that joke, and that they made that joke again in Frozen, which is the Disney cartoon. But Kristoff, his little sleigh, falls down a canyon and it blows up, and he's like, he goes, "I just paid it off." It's such a real reaction.
Man, that's great.
Anyways, kids,
hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Fast Ones, bringing you fast motorsport news,
fast journalism
in the American way,
in the American accent.
Yeah. My name is Max. I'm here with my friend Mike.
Yo,
and we just got done with the Miami Grand Prix. Let's just get straight into it, Mike.
Let's get into it.
We're going to talk about the Miami Grand Prix, give a little recap. And later this episode, we're going to have some listener questions.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a lot of stuff today. So stick around.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Should I just start with what everyone is mad about?
Everyone's mad.
And of course, it's on the top of our minds.
Yes.
The Ferrari livery
is so lame.
The biggest letdown in recent Formula One history.
I actually downloaded and saved pictures of a render because I thought it was announced. I was half awake on like a Tuesday morning, and someone had made such a dope rendering that I was convinced. I was like, oh my gosh, that looks insane.
Yeah.
And then when they fully released it, I was so disappointed.
We all were.
Because it was so disappointing.
There has been so Ferrari said that they would do a blue livery for Miami. Right?
Blue. And they were hinting at blue.
And they had done one decades ago, right?
Right.
And so they were calling back to some vintage Ferrari looks and feels.
Right.
And so it was exciting to see. I think I saw a rendering too, because there was some very realistic things going around. Is this what you were saying? Oh, yeah, I was seeing stuff like this.
I was like, that is so rad.
It's really good.
Really cool for a one-off. I was like, I love that.
And then all the drivers, Carlos, Charles, they were wearing
all the blue get
They were straight blue. And they had these cool blue hats. I wanted one of the blue hats. And then they show up to the race and it is terrible. It is just red car with like a non-matching blue stripe going off the sides.
Not even like properly opposite color wheel to like red.
No color theory for this.
No, it's just a HP.
They just went to paint code. And they picked blue from paint and dragged and dropped it over.
I just put blue on.
This is a preset.
Yeah.
They know paint knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
Preset blue.
Yeah, just Adobe Illustrator's just blue options. They're like, what about that one?
Got it.
Nailed it.
They'll do it. They'll love it.
Oh, it was such a disappointment.
The blue didn't really match the driver's blues that they were wearing.
No.
It was a big letdown.
And like, where was it going?
Yeah.
Like the trajectory of the blue made no sense. Weird. It was like from the back and it was like, ha. Yeah. You're like, wait, no, the racing, the contours of the car.
It's not going to go as fast. Like, you're going against the arrow of the car.
Like going against the grain with the design.
We all know that a flame sticker makes your car go faster.
It does.
And if you're putting pinstripes in the opposite way,
at least added.
It's going to catch air. You're going to slow down.
It seemed as though they were intentionally sabotaging their Miami Grand Prix with this.
Yeah. Did it affect their race?
I think so.
It affected morale.
I think that like the race suits looked dope.
Yeah.
I actually didn't think their helmets needed to be blue. I think that was the next biggest miss. So that I'm like, no, the blue race suit with like Charles in a red helmet and Carlos in his regular helmet.
Yeah.
Would have been cool.
Would have been cool.
Yeah. And because that is a traditional Ferrari blue race suit that like Niki Lauda, when he started at Ferrari, that was the color of the race suits.
Oh, really?
That was a cool idea to like pay homage to that like baby blue race suit.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, I dig this. And then like you said, I actually love the big lapelled mechanics team shirt that they released. I was like, that thing is so rad.
Yeah.
But when it came to the car, I was like, how much did you guys sell this HP sponsorship for?
Oh, yeah.
Because HP isn't exactly known for making anything sexy.
Oh, no.
And so this is really weird as a brand alignment.
It is like the corporatist of the corporate tech world.
The most buttoned up computer brand.
If you get hired to a tech company and it's HP, you're not proud of it.
No.
It's still cubicles. It's Office Space 2024.
My wife saw it and
Google.
She was like, they got sponsored by a printer. And I was like, they make computers as well. And she was like, really?
Yeah.
And so that says a lot about HP. Yeah. It really does.
Do you know who nailed their livery?
RB,
Visa Cash App.
It was so attractive.
It was. It was great gradients of like orange to pink and the purple hues.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Yeah, the nose was Instagram, but by the time it got to the side pods, it was like Visa and cool.
Yeah, they did great. And they revealed it in a fun way with like Yuki and Danny like painting it. They tagged things on it.
Yeah.
And then it went to like a car wash and it came out.
Yeah.
It was a full-on experience for
really
people to get involved in that livery reveal. So they crushed it.
I agree with you. It was definitely the car of the weekend.
Whoever's working for V-Carb needs to...
It's actually doing a great job.
Get hired at Ferrari.
Because the livery...
contract out that work.
Yeah, the regular livery looks great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then that special one-off was way better than any... Yeah. When Red Bull does their like American livery, I'm like, every time they do it, I'm like, this is embarrassing.
Really?
Yeah, because they're like, here's some stars and stripes. And I'm always like...
the Texas one that's weird.
Yeah, I'm like, can we just do something more creative than that?
What race did Red Bull do the white one and the red one? It was...
Oh, it's Japan.
Was it Japan?
Yeah.
That was a cool one.
The raddest. It was a Honda homage, which was very cool.
Dang.
Yeah, because Honda's F1 car back in the day used to be all white with a red circle, which is really cool.
Man, for Vegas this year, it'd be great to see just a gold glitter car.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, because Alfa Romeo did something that was like black and gold. So I'm like, that's definitely pretty Vegas.
Yeah.
But more gold.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
More sparkle.
Yeah.
But anyways, the livery on V-Carb was killer.
And then V-Carb had a great week.
They did.
Danny, should we talk about the sprint race?
I mean, we got to get into the sprint race at some point.
Let's do it.
Yeah. What did you think? I mean, sprint race qualifying was fun.
How so? Tell me about it.
I was just like...
I missed it. And so you just texted me the result.
Yeah.
And I was very happy when I found out the result. Yeah.
Should we tell people?
Well, we have a lovely... Mike has set up all his McLaren cars.
Yes.
Models. All the F1 models he has. Different eras, all race winners.
All of my McLarens.
So we have Mika Hakkinen.
Yes, Mika.
And we have Danny Ricciardo.
And Ayrton
Senna.
Yep.
And we've all agreed that McLaren can't stick to a freaking brand
color
design.
scheme.
Yeah. They do not know how to do a consistent livery that feels cohesive over a
At
decade.
any stage here. Yeah. So, I mean, from Marlboro to West to now they've got this, what Velo, which is like some kind of vape, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like, tobacco.
Yeah. So,
but anyways,
whatever we were talking about.
We'll get around to McLaren in a minute.
But I was happy about Daniel Ricciardo getting in P4.
Yeah. And
I didn't watch qualifying though for the sprint race.
Well, and we know that like this year's format has already been better, in my opinion, for the sprint weekend. Because you get FP1 and then you go to sprint qualifying right away.
Yeah.
And the reason that's fun is that like last year they were doing qualifying right after practice for Sunday.
That's right. It was a shuffle.
And then you would do sprint qualifying on Saturday morning.
The order made no sense.
Sprint on Saturday afternoon. And it was all just a hodgepodge mess. But what I liked about going from FP1 to sprint qualifying so far that they've done this is that it's a rush. It's a rush job. And so they get into qualifying. Miami has already been notorious over the last couple of years of being like unpredictable, not being able to read grip levels very well. And it can be dusty. The tarmac doesn't have a high level of grip. The tires don't really degrade. They don't really get it yet. And so because of that, it's already an outlier track.
Okay.
But then to only give one practice session and then go qualify.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it just made for a mess.
Yeah.
And the best part of that is that in the interview with Max, after he got pole, they were like, how did the lap feel? And he was like, I'm confused.
Really? Yeah.
He's like, the car is so unbalanced. I'm amazed I got pole. Was everyone else really that bad?
Yeah.
And Daniel Ricciardo, same thing. He was like, I hit the wall. I didn't think I was going to be fourth. I was very surprised.
Wow.
So the shuffle that created was that there was a couple of great laps that were put together by people who could handle driving in not ideal situations. Max got pole, Danny Rick in a car that was literally had no business being P4.
Yeah, it hasn't gotten that high in ages.
In a long time.
Yeah.
Managed to qualify there. So really cool, fun to watch qualifying where I think everyone touched the wall at least once.
That's crazy.
That the tight chicane and then the backstretch.
That tight chicane is so tight.
So gnarly.
I think everyone misses it at least once during the race.
Yeah, and Max obliterated the ball during the race.
Yeah, during the real race, Max hits the cone.
Yeah.
And the cone goes flying. Did you see his response after the race?
Yes.
It's great.
He said he didn't like the cone.
Yeah, so he's like, I want to get rid of it. Also wanted to do a front wing like damage test to see if the strength could hold up.
And it held up.
He's like, it held up. And then I got rid of the cone for everyone. And I'm like, yeah, every driver was probably so happy about that.
Yeah, like, get rid of that stupid thing. So good.
But it caused an upset during the big race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, and we'll get around to that because that played a role in Max's pace. But with then the sprint race, Daniel did a masterclass in defense.
Oh, yeah.
To hold on to P4. Carlos,
luckily, the sprint race was only, I want to say 19 laps.
Yeah.
I feel like if it was any longer than that, Carlos was eventually going to get around. If they ever had to do a pit stop,
right,
Daniel was going to lose that. So
yeah,
he held on. I think after the race, what did he say? There was nothing left. There was no tire left.
Yeah, he burned it to the ground.
Everything. I was like, good job, man.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Carlos, I feel like we'll get around to him, but I think on Sunday was a little tired of being stuck behind people. But he definitely pushed as hard as he could to try to get past and as clean as he can. And that's one of the things I like about Carlos. Is he races clean.
Yeah, he races clean. Every time there was a straightaway, I was so worried. The Ferrari's catching up.
Yeah.
It's catching up to the V-carb.
Yeah.
And then it would be just behind enough that he couldn't get around. And I was losing it every lap. I got into it.
It reminded me of Monaco 2018 where Daniel won with his power unit at 75% or whatever it was because he lost the hybrid unit. He was fully engine and turbo for the duration of the race. And he managed to keep Sebastian Vettel behind.
Wow.
By being strategic on exit speed and where he put the car to make it so he was just impossible to pass.
Wow.
So Daniel ended up winning Monaco with a car that was limping.
Yeah. Impressive.
Because of just driving dynamic and strategic driving, right? So in that same way, I was like, I'm getting flashbacks of like, this is so great to see him on form.
Yeah.
Crushing it this hard.
Yeah.
And it was such a good result for him
impressive.
and the team.
He hasn't raced at that track very much because he wasn't on the team last year when they raced at Miami.
That's right. So this is his second time at Miami.
Second time. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So good for him. I mean, crushed it.
Yeah. Do we also want to talk about Lewis and K-Mag in the sprint race?
Okay, so
save that for later?
That's what I was about to go to next.
I mean, as people who like to tease Lewis,
yes,
I was having a blast because Daniel Ricciardo was, just
slaying it
and providing a lot of like tense moments.
Right.
Whereas the other side was K-Mag just ruining Lewis's day.
Just
ruining it. And he couldn't get by Kevin Magnussen. Obviously, Kevin Magnussen was all over the road.
Yeah.
Which was fun.
Yeah, which was, even Lewis admitted to it being entertaining and fun for him. He's like, I love racing hard.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And on top of it all, Lewis answering the question that way, I loved it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
But when he couldn't get by Kevin Magnussen the whole race, and then him and K-Mag both go so deep, they go off the track, and Yuki passes Lewis, I just imagine Lewis swearing his head off in that helmet.
Just be like, come on!
So it was a fun race for me.
Bono!
Yeah.
Why is this car so slow?
That Mercedes, to be battling for 7th and 8th and 9th.
With a Haas.
With a Haas. So fun for the Haas.
It's so awesome for Haas, and it is embarrassing for Mercedes.
Yeah.
It's like, get it together, guys.
Yeah.
You are competing with a CNC machine company. Like, what is happening?
You have the biggest manufacturer in the world.
One of the best engineering teams on planet Earth.
Yeah.
I drive a Mercedes every day. It is a very refined and engineered to a T machine for 1982.
Yeah.
But anyways,
it was fun to watch.
But also, in context of this race, Lewis also there's probably some performance loss. Lewis sent it down the inside, crashing into Fernando, then Lance, and punting Lando off the track on lap 1 of the sprint.
Lewis kind of set off that chain reaction.
Yeah, he sent it down the inside. Fernando was like, "Oh crap," and like hesitated because he was like, "Is Lewis even going to make the corner?" And baby boy, doing baby boy things, turns in on his teammate without even really paying attention and gets punted, and then he punts Lando. So that chain reaction started with Lewis going deep.
Yeah. Okay.
And Lewis did make contact with Fernando and did shed a few carbon fiber bits as he went past.
So Lewis had a little bit of damage.
A tiny bit of damage, yeah.
Man, okay, yeah.
So, but with that said, we're going to get into the race now, but I wanted to mention this.
Okay. What race? The big race?
The big race.
Okay.
Because I wanted to mention that Lewis was not even investigated for causing a collision.
Oh, note that.
Note that there was no...
Lewis, nationality, Britain, not investigated.
Not investigated.
Yeah.
Okay. Blatant. Blatant crashing into Fernando.
Yeah.
No investigation. Kevin Magnussen driving defensively, protecting his teammate, went across the chicane once.
Okay.
The first time he went across the chicane, 10-second penalty with no questions asked.
And he was ahead of, there was no even passing.
They weren't axles to axle.
Not even close.
Nothing.
They were just kind of driving. He was like behind Kevin Magnussen.
To my understanding, track limit violations, which that technically is what that is, needs 3.
Needs 3 kind of warnings.
You have to go across the white line 3 times before they penalize you for track limits.
This is
Even
all.
If you cut a chicane, there's a proper way to cut a chicane. They always have that,
like a little exit route.
And on Miami, it's such a short chicane that you go straight across.
There's no way to get out of that chicane gracefully.
Right. And so the only thing that I don't know is that if they had said in a driver's meeting or predetermined that was an immediate 10-second penalty. But to my knowledge,
which would be kind of crazy because everyone goes over that chicane wrong.
If they make one mistake, they would.
It is insanely tight.
Right. And you saw lots of skidding and going out of control throughout the race weekend. K-Mag, there's no way he was the only one that did it.
No, he wasn't, yeah.
And so anyways, the immediate 10-second penalty was something that I'm like, look, the meatball flag, all of the penalties K-Mag's gotten, I was starting to get fired up. I was like, come on. Like, he didn't even gain a lasting advantage.
No.
Lewis in Abu Dhabi, when Max and him didn't touch and he took a right turn across
huge
90% of the track and didn't get a penalty because he didn't gain a lasting advantage.
Yeah.
And so Kevin going through the chicane and 10 seconds, Kevin. And then immediately Kevin said, fine.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it so it doesn't matter how hard you penalize me, nobody's getting to my teammate.
Yeah.
And he just continues to prove the stewards is like, you keep throwing things at me, and I will just keep playing a game that you don't like.
Yeah.
And it's a team game, but at the same time, it's like, I do feel like it's a little punk rock. It's a little anti-establishment.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Creates great racing.
Yeah. But also, that penalty, a 10-second penalty in a sprint race.
Yeah.
You're immediately in last place.
Last.
So your incentive is now no longer to keep racing at that moment, but
wreck
now
everything
to play defense. And it's like, oh, if you give me another penalty, it doesn't matter. I'm already at the back.
Right.
What was the incentive with this penalty?
What's the point? Right.
Yeah.
And so, and again, to deliver it so immediate and be like, there was no reason for him to do that. And it's like,
I immediately thought of that race with Lewis.
Yeah.
When he just goes across like this 200-yard segment. And just off into the distance.
It is so blatant, it's ridiculous. and it's like, I
remember it was at the height of the Max Lewis rivalry, and you were watching with a magnifying glass everything each driver did.
Yeah, because they were both over the line.
They were both
constantly.
ridiculous. And when Lewis did that and nothing happened, I remember losing my mind.
Yeah, being like, how is that not a penalty?
What is happening? And
so
the K-Mag, when that happened, I was like, that was quick.
And here's the thing.
Ridiculous.
Kevin Magnussen went through a chicane. Didn't make contact with anyone. He didn't break a car. There wasn't carbon fiber. He wasn't threatening a safety car. Nothing dangerous.
Yeah.
He cut the chicane out of like a little bit of loss of control in that moment, didn't gain a lasting advantage, and immediately got a 10-second penalty. Lewis Hamilton crashed into Fernando Alonso.
Okay, yeah, we're going back to
punted into Lance Stroll, then punted Lando Norris, who ended up being Sunday's race winner, out of the sprint race.
Yeah.
And didn't get anything.
True. That's all true.
So, with that, Fernando Alonso, who is just the best. Let's just talk about how he's
becoming
the best.
A cool guy.
He's just the best.
Yeah.
Fernando Alonso said in a quote,
the voice of dissent.
The headline reads, Alonso to talk with FIA over claims of nationality bias.
He's going after it.
He's full send. And he says, so this is the headline from Autosport. Fernando Alonso says he will speak with the FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, about his feeling that his nationality is influencing stewards' decisions. Alonso fumed that Hamilton would escape sanction after a lap 1 collision in Saturday's sprint race because he isn't Spanish. After qualifying later on, he felt the same way over how he is treating. And he said, I do feel that nationality matters. And I will speak with Mohammed Ben Sulayem with the FIA, whatever. He says, I need to make sure that there isn't anything wrong with my nationality or anything that can influence any decision, not only for me, also for the future generation of Spanish drivers. They need to be protected. And so where he's saying that it's a Spaniard thing, Carlos Sainz, I have another reference to this.
Really? Okay, keep going. Yeah.
This isn't penalty talk.
Yeah.
But I will say that even just the media reaction. Okay. And this is where we're going to get into race weekend stuff.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're going to agree with me on this.
Of course.
This race was genuinely epic. It was a great race.
Really fun weekend.
Super fun to watch.
Yeah.
The result was great. It was epic. I was super excited for McLaren, super excited for Lando.
Yeah.
Huge result.
Just so fun to see someone else on the podium, even if you're not a McLaren fan.
Right.
Great results.
Great result. But in contrast to Carlos Sainz's win in Australia, media feel paddock feeling to that win versus Lando Norris winning in Miami. Which one had more of just this general overarching feeling?
I would say Miami.
Right.
But I can't really remember the Australian one very much.
Okay.
So maybe because the Miami is more fresh in my head.
Right.
But I know I have shots of Lando crowd surfing.
Right.
I have great shots of, in my memory, of like champagne popping.
Right.
And then constant videos and interviews with Lando and Zach Brown. So much.
Right.
Across also like Instagram.
All of social media,
yeah.
Every Twitter account, all these things, right?
I can't picture a lot of what happened in Australia. I feel like there was an interview with Gunter and Carlos.
Right. Yeah.
That's all I can really remember.
Charles is like,
yeah.
It's like, no, it's not that you can't hear him. It's you just like, can't understand him.
You don't know what accent he's speaking with right now.
He's speaking Italian, Gunter. He actually understands that.
Yeah.
So, but with that said, and look, I know that Carlos has won a couple of races.
Yeah. So it's not as big of a milestone for him.
A little different.
Yeah.
And, but what I will say about his win is that he had his appendix out. So there was this like dynamic of like, whoa, you literally just came out of surgery.
Yeah.
It's nuts that
it's
you managed to win.
It's a monumental thing. Yeah.
Right?
Especially when Red Bull is dominating every race.
Yeah.
Any other team to win a race is a huge thing for the season.
It was an enormous feat.
He's still the only one, well now the Lando, but at the time, still the only guy to beat Red Bull.
Since the RB19.
So it's a big thing.
Or RB19 was introduced.
Yeah.
Carlos is the only one to beat him. So now Lando has. But I feel like I had flashes. Now, again, I was stoked. I am stoked. What a result. It's cool. Obviously, I have some...
We got the McLarens out on display today because we support it.
Yeah, it was huge. And obviously, I've had many drivers from McLaren that I am a fan of. One of them, I am wearing a sweatsuit of his today.
There you go.
The last McLaren GP winner. So, with that said, I felt like when I was watching it, I was like, all right, can we stop gushing? Like, oh,
yeah.
Lando.
Yeah.
I knew it. It's like Ron Burgundy when he is like, milk was a bad choice. I felt like that's what I was hearing from everybody. And then I went on Twitter and Instagram, and like you said, it was just everywhere. It's plastered. And I know Lando's really popular. I know all this stuff. But it gave me flashes of Lewis winning in Silverstone after punting Max into a wall at Copse Corner.
Running around with a flag.
And everyone just being like, what a victory! I can't believe he managed it. And just being like, oh, did we already forget that he almost committed homicide a few corners ago?
Yeah.
Like, that was brutal accident. And he's just out there like on his knees with the flag and the fans and all. And I was just like, I am having the same
similar feelings.
PTSD.
Yeah.
Just this British gush for the British driver and the British team. And our boy, our baby boy Lando has finally come. He's come of age. It is time.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the only thing that I got about it, that I was like, please stop. I don't want you to ruin this, because I am excited. But you guys are being a bit over the top.
Yeah.
Did you get that impression?
I mean, both commentators are from England.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
Yeah. Brundle and Crofty were doing the race, right?
Right.
So they're stoked if it's a British driver, even more. I mean, even if they're not doing it on purpose.
Right,
right. I would be doing the same thing if it was an American driver.
But see, that's where I feel like I'm a little different in this.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I care. I don't know if I care about like nationality. I just am excited about people.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It makes sense.
For me, I'm like, I'm just excited for the dude who won. Yeah. I'm excited for the team that won.
You are very much more so than most people, apparently.
Yeah, well, no, because when I look at like Logan Sargent, I'm kind of like, nah, you kind of having a tough time.
Yeah.
And I know that Formula One's for the best drivers. I'm willing to say that if you aren't making the cut, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
It would be great to have our nation represented, but it also would be great to have our nation represented by somebody who belongs.
Yeah.
And that's a brutal take.
Yeah.
But I also am willing to admit that I've seen that being like, well, perform, man. I want you to be up there.
Formula One, from comments I've seen online and on Reddit and things, there is a massive feeling of ownership from British fans.
From the UK.
And from Europe.
And it's merited in the sense that, yes, the teams are located in the UK.
Yeah.
And the sport has been predominantly a British-run operation through the duration of its time.
Yeah. And Americans, we like to pick on them and just like poke at it.
Yeah.
because Americans bought the sport. It's owned by an American right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Majority, and the country with the most races by far is now America.
Right.
So that's our way of poking back at them. But I get it. Like, it is a very European, very British thing.
Right.
And so it does run deep. Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like, how do you balance it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where it's like, how do you?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get too gushy over a Lando? And is it maybe just because we all like Lando because he's the kid and he kind of still feels like the kid, even though he's been in the sport for 5 years?
Yeah.
We're all kind of like, baby boy. Like I said, it kind of feels like it's your moment.
Mm-hmm.
The gamer finally won,
Yeah.
Where, I think that maybe in the other case of like Carlos Sainz when he won in his first race, it was epic, but at the same time, it didn't feel quite as the same in the sense of, I don't know, social media.
As much of a celebration and like as much of a milestone for the sport in a whole.
Right.
Like they'll do like ESPN documentaries on Lando's first victory.
Right.
Whereas like
that
Carlos,
seems terribly unfair.
Yeah.
Right?
Carlos might not. Yeah.
Right. And so that's more or less of my take is that it's like, look, I get it. This sport is heavily English influence.
Yeah.
But I also am over here like, can we be that excited when just anybody wins?
Yeah. And it's not for me, I'm like, let him gush, let him be excited.
Yeah.
If there's a lot of like British support and things. But when it starts to leak into how it's being treated in the penalties and the rules, where they start to like play games of like, the Spanish team, the French team, they're not going to get as much preferential treatment as we're giving these teams that are like English based or drivers that are from England.
Well, look, and I think
starts to get problematic.
The primary example of the correct way to handle yourself as a British person who watches Formula One and enjoys it is Henry Wallace.
And Henry Wallace, the Haas chap.
Is because you like the one team that's not from your country.
Yeah.
The only one that really is other than
against
Ferrari.
The grain, the underdog, the true fan.
Yeah. So, I just think that it's an interesting dynamic of how the sport presents itself, how they move into the future, and how they don't show favoritism in penalties.
Yeah.
Or in race wins, or how they treat certain things media-wise or whatever.
I don't know if this plays into it, but as a Utah resident and a semi-NBA fan.
Oh, yeah.
I like when the Jazz are winning, I'll pay attention.
Yeah.
I always notice whenever there's an NBA promo and they're showing all the highlights from all the different players across the league.
Yeah.
The Jazz never make any of the highlight reels.
Never any of the reels.
Even if they're in the playoffs, even if they're in the semifinals.
Even if they're in the top of their division.
They will not show a highlight from any Jazz members. There's divisions and leagues and...
Are there divisions?
I have
there?
no idea.
Oh, dang it.
I mean, there's the conference. It's the Eastern and Western Conference.
Oh, okay. If they're the top of their conference.
They
probably still win.
And their age group. I don't know. But no, it's like, I was just thinking, is there any other sport that does that? And I feel like the NBA does... they do highlight their golden poster child teams,
the
like
Lakers,
the Celtics,
even the Knicks. If the Knicks are any good,
yeah, the Heat. Like they have these teams where they just
the Cavaliers, which is like
it's just whatever team LeBron had played on.
Why are you?
Yeah, totally. It's really it. And so I get it. Like, and they just talk about the Lakers nonstop, even if the Lakers are on a losing streak. Like. They'll continue to talk about LeBron throughout the whole playoffs, even though he got knocked out.
Even though they've been eliminated
pretty quickly.
Yeah. When it was like first round, you're like,
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
every sport has its
bias.
Has its biased.
Yeah,
and
that's a
golden
good point.
child that they worship.
I'm a Dodgers fan, and I'm well aware that people.
That's the baseball one. It's the Dodgers and the
Dodgers.
Yankees. Yeah,
but I always laugh because I'm like, I dealt with 32 years of a losing team. We didn't have a single World Series to our name for a long time. I was like, I don't know. I feel like every team's had their shot except for us at this point. And I finally won one during COVID, and now it's been another journey back to the top. So with that said, I'm like, well, we don't really have the results to prove it. We just have a lot of fans.
You have a lot of fans. It's hard with like the LA and the New York thing because people just buy hats.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I get it. I get that you hate my team because everyone wears the hat.
Yeah.
I wear the hat. But I'm a fan.
I'm a fan. I live there. Like you're fine.
But I do agree. There's sports bias is real, and I think that's maybe a good way to put it. Is that it's not just Formula One. All sports feel this.
Yeah. If I was an F1 team, if I was a team principal, I am then going to, if I want to increase every single percentage chance I have at winning a race, you get a British driver because, statistically, he will get fewer penalties. Then you can put a British flag on your car.
Okay, so this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
ProDrive, the CEO of ProDrive, I'm forgetting his name right now.
What is ProDrive?
ProDrive is a rally team. They actually were the ones who built the 555 Subaru WRX Impreza.
Okay.
Which is Colin McRae and Carlos Sainz Sr. were teammates at Subaru when they won the World Rally Championship.
Okay, two legends.
And that is over my shoulder right there. It's a little dark, but you can see it on my camera. One of my favorite cars, the GC8. But the reason I mention this is because he said that he worked with Carlos Sainz Sr. and with Colin McRae. Colin McRae was British.
Yeah.
And he said, what are the... Tom Clarkson asked him on his Beyond the Grid, he said, what are the key components of a driver to win and to really push the team forward? And he said, they have to be British.
Really?
In his interview, he said that. And my jaw hit the floor.
And his reason is what? Like, was it a joke, or was he like, because they get preferential treatment?
Because of the team being British. Because the people who are building the cars and supporting him on a daily basis and all these things speak the same language, culturally have the same values, but with Carlos Sainz driving for the same team and is known as a rally car racing legend.
He's a beast.
The dude's a beast. And for him to just outright call it and say British, it's like
interesting.
No wonder the Spaniards are calling foul.
They're feeling it.
They're genuinely feeling it from the teams, from the FIA. And the interesting part of the FIA is that it's like, yes, it's a French-based organization, but there is a lot of British influence in this.
Yeah.
It's an interesting talking point.
Yeah, interesting.
And so with that said, that's a small recap of penalties before we even get into conversation about penalties.
Yeah, because there's more to say about it.
There is more to talk about.
Anything else from the Miami Grand Prix that we liked? I liked that Will.i.am wasn't there.
He was.
I'm glad he didn't rap.
He was so uncomfortable with Martin Brundle. It was like, hey.
Is he just trying so hard to be a Formula One like celebrity local?
I'm just going to stop you right there. You said, is he trying so hard? And the answer is yes. I don't care what you follow it with.
Yeah,
that is Will.i.am to a T.
Try hard.
He's just a try hard.
Yeah. Any other good celebrities on the grid walk?
Actually, I was going to say the grid walk was great.
Yeah.
For a couple reasons. One, because Martin Brundle got backfired on by the Mercedes and it hit him in the thigh, and it scared him bad. He was like, "Oh my gosh!" And he's like, "I'm grateful that was the thigh and not something else." As he walked away,
he's so quick,
so funny. But Martin Brundle was walking the grid walk, and, call me crazy, but I'm pretty sure he blasted right past Lindsay Brewer, and I was like, Brundle, don't you know who she is?
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Friend of our show.
Friend of our show. Sorry, not Sky.
Yeah, no. She's a huge friend of our show.
Huge friend, Indy Next Star. Max has got a t-shirt. It only took like 6 months to get.
She's on like the same team as Roman Grosjean.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so no, she's a huge supporter of the show.
Huge celeb.
And if that's not right, Lindsay, come on the show and tell us where you're not.
Tell us. Go ahead. We'll accept it.
Here's a question. In previous years, we have made fun of the Miami Grand Prix as being this fake Disney World version of Formula One.
Totally.
Showing off kind of the worst aspects of America.
Yes. Big plastic fake.
Big plastic fake tacky.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
This year, is it still that way? Or is it getting better?
I would say that this result and the amount of passes and just the overall race weekend solidified it as like, this is a race we look forward to.
Yeah.
And it's got its place in our calendar now.
Cool. Yeah.
And I think that this is the first time it's ever felt that way.
Yeah.
Because Max has won the last two, which didn't help. Where it was like, oh, cool, we got this new racetrack, and literally no one can beat Max, which hasn't helped with its introduction to the calendar. Right? Yeah. Max won from 9th its first year, and everyone was like, oh,
this is fun.
This is fun. Yeah, and now Lando winning this, like I said, the amount of overtakes, accidents, chaos, so fun.
Yeah.
I
think it's
personally,
great that some of those straights, they get over 200 miles an hour easy.
right.
Some tracks, they don't really break the 200 mile per hour barrier.
Right.
But this one, they were getting real fast. I think that's always real fun.
And I think that there's just it's street circuit stuff, but it isn't quite as high consequence as like Saudi Arabia's track is.
Yeah.
Where the wall is there.
Mm-hmm.
You miss your mark, you hit a wall.
Mm-hmm.
The only part of the track that's like that is that chicane with the bollard.
Yeah. It's insane.
It's very high risk through there.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the track is pretty forgiving.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's like, what a good race. I agree with you on that. And then also because the surface of the track is so unpredictable, the temperatures are hot, the tires don't like it at all.
Yeah.
It just developed
It's
great
a pretty
race.
good race, pretty good weekend. And then the sprint race added on to that. So fun.
Definitely.
Fun time. Yeah.
Yeah. So high five, Miami. Whoosh.
Yeah.
Good race weekend.
We might race there again.
We might actually keep doing this for another decade.
Yeah. There you go.
Another 7 years.
All right, okay. Shifting gears just a little bit.
Yes.
Dude, let's get more into the penalties.
Yes.
We got a big, front row seat to what penalties can do to Formula One.
Right.
This race, and also this season with the introduction of that 10-second, because 10 seconds is now the minimum penalty that
it went
drivers
from
can get.
5 to 10.
Yeah, so I just kind of wanted to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike, what do you know about penalties? In that, what is some of the history of penalties? And then how have they evolved? And that now I am seeing that this 10-second penalty is now not making drivers want to race properly.
Right.
Because Kevin Magnussen's like, oh, you just gave me 2 penalties, 20 seconds down. Now I'm going to ruin this race for everyone.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do about it because this is what you wanted. And so I genuinely don't think the FIA saw that as a reaction to this thing.
Right.
They were probably wanting to be more punitive to keep drivers in line. Like, don't crash. Don't do overtaking in the wrong places, whatever it is. But now it's having this knock-on effect that they didn't expect. What do you think?
A 10-second penalty for, even the 5-second penalty, we'll say, with Sebastian Vettel in Canada. We talked about this on a Haas-Boys episode.
Oh, yeah.
Where he lost the race because of a 5-second penalty because he couldn't pull a 5-second gap on Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
And he was fuming. It was because he went on the grass and he got 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, another non-British driver who got a penalty that was unfair. But with that said, as an example, penalties can be more of an impact in the sense of, if you're in the lead, you're going to be fuming.
Yeah.
If you get a penalty that's 5 or 10 seconds, it's going to ruin your race completely.
Yeah, race changing.
If you're in 9th or 10th and you give somebody a 10-second penalty, game on.
Yeah.
I am now a wrecking ball.
What's the point?
Try to get through me. I am going to just do whatever I want now.
Yeah.
And they never saw this coming.
Yeah.
And I love that Kevin has exploited the hell out of it. Because nothing that he's doing in the rules requires a black flag. Which
he's
is
just staying within the lines
disqualification
of being a whippersnapper.
Right.
Just
racing as hard as he possibly can.
Just being a stinker.
Without getting a ban. Without getting disqualified.
Did anything else happen to him this weekend that would count as a penalty?
He's close to getting because that we talked about this in another episode as well, but penalty points on your license.
Okay.
With the FIA,
all the drivers have a license.
Yes.
And they get penalty points.
Right. Just like if you get a speeding ticket. Right.
Okay. And Kevin has how many?
He has 10 after this weekend because they gave him 6 from this weekend alone.
And what's the max you can have?
12.
12.
So if he has any scrap for the next 12 months, because they take that long to fall off, he will get a race ban.
Oh, okay.
And there hasn't been anyone who has experienced an FIA race ban since Romain Grosjean when he was with Lotus.
I was going to say, hopefully it was another Haas.
It wasn't with Haas.
It.
It was when he karate chopped at Spa across all of the cars. That's when he got his race ban.
Oh, okay.
So when he crashed into Lewis and Fernando at Spa on the first turn.
Dang.
So that's when Grosjean got a race ban.
What a great record.
And now his beloved teammate, Magnussen, is faced with potentially the same reality.
Carrying on the tradition.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But even just to talk about points and the history of penalties and some of this, what I will say is that to recollection, predominantly the way that they used to penalize people in the previous days was a black flag. It was very cut and dry.
Very binary way of just penalizing someone. Because obviously everything that has happened in Formula One, rules, safety things, is all just a slow evolution of learning how to do this sport.
Right, and how to govern it.
So in the day, it was just like, hey, you're done. Get out of the race.
Yeah, and if you remember in the movie Rush, if you've seen Rush for our listeners, there's a scene in the movie where James Hunt wins a race, and after the race, they take a measuring tape and they measure from wheel to wheel, and they go, he's 2 millimeters over or something, and then they go, disqualified, and they freak out because they're like, what are you talking about? The car passed inspection before the race and tires didn't grow. What are you talking about? And they went to war with the FIA to prove that race win shouldn't be revoked, or it should have been awarded. And in that appeal, they did eventually win. And that's how James won the championship. Was that race was a determining factor in how he won his one championship.
Crazy. Has there been any penalties that you can recall that have just been so absurd in like the past 10, 20 years that just seem wild and uncalled for?
Yeah.
That don't make sense?
Well,
like for like this year, the 10-second penalty is just wild to me.
It does seem really harsh.
Really harsh. I feel like there should be a 2-second penalty.
Right.
That's like, hey, you need to, that's gonna put you down a position or two and then still motivate you to take that position back.
So to even talk about where penalties as we recognize them in the current format of Formula One with the 5-second penalty, which is now increased to the 10, was introduced in this format in 2014. Okay. So with the hybrid engine regulation is when they introduced, you get a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision, jumping the start.
Okay.
Various
little infractions on the rules.
Yeah. Would give you a 5-second time penalty.
Okay.
Back in the day, though, it was disqualification, but then they started to come up with the idea of a stop and go penalty, which is something that like NASCAR and IndyCar also do.
Well, how does that work?
Stop and go penalties are something that would make you do like, or a drive-through penalty, which means you have to go into your pit box, stop, and continue on for whatever infraction would have given you that result. That, as we know right now, is a 22-second.
That is a big penalty.
Yeah, that's a huge addition to your race.
It's just a pit stop, and that's annoying.
Right. And so I think that with this new format...
With the 5-second penalty, it's like a lenient way of serving a minor penalty.
And a lot of people, when they introduced it, complained, is that even enough? Does that even make a difference? Now, consider that in the 2014 regulations, when Lewis and Mercedes are running away.
Right.
And we talked about Chinese Grand Prix results in 2019.
We compared the times.
It was like 30. It was lapped up to 6th place, and everyone else was minutes behind Lewis, right? So a 5-second penalty for someone like Lewis is going to do nothing.
Yeah, he's so smiling about that.
So the weird, like, kind of counterintuitive jump to 10-second penalty in the current regulation, to me, suddenly takes a very condensed pack of race cars.
Like it's too much in this era. It's too much too late.
You're adding a ton of time to somebody who's in a 19-lap race, never going to make any inroads on a 10-second penalty to overcome it. And so you're like, wait, you've doomed his race. Of course he's going to mess around. What has he got to lose?
Yeah.
But I think that there might be a use case here where the 10-second penalty might be more relevant for a race.
Yeah. For like a full-on 70-lap race, 50-lap race.
Right.
Yeah.
But something that's sprint race, maybe there's something that's shorter alternative.
Yeah.
Because it's not even a half race distance. So a 5-second penalty still seems extremely brutal for a sprint.
Totally. I wonder if it can be like a sliding scale penalty.
Yeah.
Where like Max gets a 20-second penalty, and then like Joe Guan Yu in the back just gets like
a 10th.
He gets a minus 1 second. Like if he penalizes, like he gets bumped up a place. Like it's
like you ran someone off the road and created a safety car. Great. That slowed Max down.
If it's Max, you get 5 places. If it's Max Verstappen, you get 5 places added to it.
All right. You're right. We went Mario Kart with this. I didn't mean to.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It just seems, again, like in the talking point of Miami, in the wake of Magnussen penalties during a sprint race, it really seems like 10 is harsh for 19 laps. Max was running a second and a half a lap faster than everybody in China, and that was absurd pace. So with that being said, you would expect Magnussen to be able to run something close to a second faster than his competitors to overcome that delta. No way. No way.
Yeah.
Not that they make the penalties as something that it can be overcome.
Yeah.
But given the difference between the two, Max could overcome a 10-second penalty and nobody else could.
Yeah.
So maybe a sliding scale is something that's worth a discussion. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think instituting the 5-second back, it would be fine. Or a 2-second for a sprint race. If you have a sprint race, it's just a different format. It's a different culture or different like strategy all around. And to apply like full-on race mechanics to this tiny little sprint, doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and maybe the solution is to be like, if you do something dirty, something that is, frowned upon in the sprint, maybe it does carry over to the race.
That's not a bad idea.
Because at that point, then the penalty is worth avoiding. Because you're like, ooh, there's more points at stake.
Yeah.
And I want to perform more there than I do here. Which then deters a Lewis from driving up the inside like a bulldozer.
What happened to Lando when he crashed and he walked across the track?
It's just because he walked across the track.
Well, did he get penalized?
Yes. Well, at least he was fined, which I think they did to Lewis as well. And was it Qatar? Where was it that George and him crashed? I want to say it was Qatar. Oh, yeah, because it was Qatar, because all the drivers came out of there like puking, almost fainting, and Lewis was just like, was that on lap 1?
Yeah. I had a nice time.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's a good idea. If they could be penalized in the sprint race and serve those penalties in the Grand Prix.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
So, yeah. So anyways, I think that's a good way to wrap up penalties.
Totally.
Any other questions?
No, that's a great way to wrap it up.
Cool.
I'm sure they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Kevin Magnussen, I guess he's being incentivized to not act out anymore.
Right.
But we'll see how many 10-second penalties they throw at him the rest of the season. He seems to be just a magnet right now, attracting them.
He's a Magnussen.
Yeah, a Magnussen.
Penalty Magnussen.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Lewis is just repelling those penalties hard.
All the time.
Yeah. We could get Magnussen English citizenship.
Yeah.
Yeah, could we apply?
Yeah, let's do it for him.
And watch those penalties just melt away. They're like, oh, you don't have as many points on your super license anymore. You're down to 5.
Thanks. Cheerio.
Every British citizenship comes with -5 penalties on your super license.
He just uses very
interesting how that works.
Like very British terms that are like stereotypical and offensive almost.
Cheerio.
Good day, chap.
All right. Okay. We're going to wrap up with some listener questions. This is a good one.
Let's go.
And it comes from Jason out of Philadelphia.
Philly.
He says, why is George Russell doing better than Lewis Hamilton?
Oh, okay.
That's it.
I'm sorry that I laughed when I heard George Russell.
No, it's a funny name.
I didn't mean to do that.
If you want a good laugh, just go to George Russell's Instagram.
I wasn't doing that on purpose.
Look at whatever George is doing and have a good laugh. He's trying so hard.
He's trying so hard.
But yeah, Lewis and George, it's a good question.
It is a good question.
Fun little topic of conversation. We have talked recently on the podcast about Lewis and how great everyone thinks he is. And if he is that good, if he is the greatest of all time, should he at least be beating his teammate?
Right.
Right now, they are kind of neck and neck. I think they trade each week.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It really depends. Some I know that I think George is higher in the points right now. Here's the thing. I will say this.
Okay.
And we haven't talked about it on any show ever up to this point. And this is episode 80.
Yeah. 80 episodes.
80 episodes for Fast Ones / HB Haas boys.
Yeah, we'll see if the FIA covers this milestone.
10-second penalty does. But I do like Lewis.
Yep.
I think that I respect the crap out of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I make fun of him a lot because his persona.
Because no one is above mocking.
No one is above it.
No.
And so I get a lot of. But think
people
it's very
get
fun.
touchy when you suggest that maybe he's not a god.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not Team LH.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
But I respect the crap out of Lewis.
And we have said on this podcast that it would be fun to watch him competing at Ferrari for a title.
It would be so fun to see him out front again.
Yeah.
With all of that said, I think that Lewis has gone through a period similar to Daniel Ricciardo. What is interesting about being Lewis Hamilton and being Daniel Ricciardo is that Daniel doesn't have 7 championships to back him up. He has race wins, but because Red Bull had a Renault power unit and was struggling for those race wins when he was there, he didn't have a championship.
In those Mercedes eras when they were dominant by minutes,
there's literally no one else winning.
Ricciardo's coming in third.
Right.
That's impressive.
Podium finishes and the occasional win, which was a killer result for Red Bull at the time.
Yeah.
So all these new fans, all the Drive to Survive fans.
Yeah, how dare they?
Yeah, or even the old fans that are
short-term memory
on
loss.
him. Yeah. It's an interesting dynamic to be like, Daniel's washed up and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest challenges of people like Daniel, people like Sebastian, people like Lewis, is that when a car is dialed to your liking, and you go to one that is not, the expectation of continual delivery in a mediocre car is something that these guys are not mid-pack racers. They have not had to race bad race cars in their career, or at least not in long durations.
There's not a lot of experience of having cars on either side of you for the whole race.
Right. Daniel had some time in the sport before he went to Red Bull, but it wasn't long.
Yeah.
And when he got graduated to the team, he performed like a mofo. Sebastian couldn't stop him. And everyone was like, what had happened to Sebastian?
Yeah.
And that was during the hybrid unit change, right? So Sebastian goes to Ferrari. Sebastian struggles at Ferrari. But when Sebastian was his 4-year dominant period at Red Bull, Mark Webber could not do what Sebastian was doing, right?
Yeah.
And Valtteri could not do what Lewis was doing.
Yeah.
And Bottas is a damn good race car driver, right?
Yeah.
Webber is an insanely good race car driver.
Yeah.
So these teammates who struggle to unlock the magic that some of these teammates they have get is sort of that this one's spoiled, right?
Yeah.
I'll keep it simple. Daniel at Red Bull had exactly everything he wanted. A race car that was pointy, oversteered. He knew how to handle it. He went to Renault. The car wasn't built that way. He helped them design and engineer a car that he wanted.
Was getting used to, yeah.
And the next season, he put it on the podium. He goes to McLaren. The car is a dog.
Yeah.
Manages a win at Monza.
Bad years at McLaren.
Yeah. Then when he goes into the new regulations with McLaren, it's almost impossible to drive for him. And in the interviews, he says it's not a difference between him and Lando in capabilities. It's a difference between Lando's career started with this. And he's lucky he doesn't know what it's like to drive a better race car.
Interesting.
That was his answer. And everyone was like, what kind of knock on Lando is that?
Yeah, what does that even mean?
And it isn't a knock.
Yeah.
But developing your F1 career in a car that doesn't drive well means that you will get better at driving that car.
Yeah.
But going from something you prefer to something you really don't.
Yeah.
And not being able to deliver in the thing you really don't like to drive seems to me like what Lewis is going through. All of this example is to say George Russell came from Williams to Mercedes. Williams was really off the pace.
Yeah.
Really slow. Mercedes, no matter how bad, air quotes, they've been over the last few years, is miles ahead of where Williams was.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he is highly preferring this car. Lewis is very used to an extremely dominant race car designed to exactly his spec.
Yeah.
and this car is just nowhere near it.
Right.
So him not delivering, I think it has a lot to do with this dynamic.
With that whole dynamic.
Yeah.
I imagine my my analogy is that, let's say you've played Fortnite on your Xbox for a long time, and then you start playing it on a Switch. It's going to be tough because the A-B buttons are switched.
Right.
And you're going to be hitting the wrong button.
Yep.
And it's going to take a while to get used to, and it's not going to be your platform, and you're going to hate it.
I switch between PC and Mac for editing.
Oh.
And it's like Adobe Premiere is the same.
The hotkeys are different.
They're the same program, but the Windows and the Command key are in different places.
Yeah.
And it is, nothing frustrates me more.
Yeah, I mean, you go from using an iPhone to an Android, and you look like an idiot.
Yeah, you're just a
I don't know where the buttons are.
And it's amazing. It's like these, I give it to these drivers that they can even make steering wheel adjustments.
It's impressive.
In their first season with a new team.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you figure that out?
So it makes sense. That's a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lewis and George. It makes sense.
Big recalibration for the way that this has been, and I just think that George has adapted better.
Yeah.
Because the car for him is better.
Yeah. And they might be building it around George, knowing that he is the one who's going to be he's going to be at the team next year.
Right.
Lewis isn't. Well, so of course they're going to be like, let's focus on George, and Lewis is the GOAT.
Right.
So he should be able to keep up.
Right. Well, and I, like, consider this. This is my last little point on it.
Yes.
When a driver is new to the team and is the future.
Yeah.
If he says, well, this is better. This is fast. It's working. And the old guard, somebody that you're like, I don't know how much longer you're going to race, is saying, this is a dog.
Yeah.
It doesn't race the way that I like. You're like, shh. He says it's better. Let's see if we can figure out how to make it better.
Interesting. So they're not going for experience. They're kind of ignoring the experience.
I think a lot of people have sensed that. That's part of the reason why Lewis was like, they're not listening to me. And then when he signed with Ferrari, it almost seemed like no surprise.
Yeah.
Because of the way Mercedes didn't even show up when he got on a podium last year.
Yeah.
And so with that said, I think that a lot of that plays into that same mentality. Daniel's experienced, Lewis is experienced, Sebastian experienced with Ferrari. A lot of that, like, well, if you could just build it to what I'm asking for, we could get there.
Yeah.
And as they haven't been able to deliver that for these people, you could see them struggle.
Yeah. So
I do look forward to seeing Lewis potentially overcome this with a team who is more willing to give him maybe what he wants.
Cool. That'll be fun. Something to look forward to. Jason.
Great question, Jason.
Thanks for sending your question.
Yeah.
And if you want to send in a question, please do so. Like us and follow us on Instagram. Send us messages. We do have an email, fastones.us@gmail.com. Like us, share us, and we'll see you next week.
We'll be here.
Watch us on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tune in, folks.
Every British citizenship comes with -5 penalties on your super license.